In his inaugural address, President Biden pledged his whole soul to the task of bringing America together, uniting our people, and uniting our nation. These are nice words, but just hours later, President Biden signed a slew of executive orders, one of which could make it next to impossible for President Biden to honor his promise to unite our nation, particularly the growing divide between rural and urban Americans. We and our nation's public lands are at a critical juncture. Federal lands policy is poised to once again ping-pong between political parties, primarily through the use of something called the Antiquities Act. The Antiquities Act is a law more than a century old that was originally designed to protect and preserve our public lands. But it's unfortunately become rife with opportunities for abuse over the last few decades. National monument designations through the Antiquities Act were originally small, or to quote the statute, just sufficiently large to provide for the proper care and management of the monument. But over time, as the scope and the power of the executive branch of the federal government have grown, so have the size of monument designations. Take, for example, the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. This was originally designated by President Clinton in 1996 with nearly 1.9 million acres, larger than the state of Delaware. Or take, for example, the Bears Ears National Monument, which originally covered just over 1.3 million acres, or almost the size of the state of Delaware, and was put in place in 2016 in the closing weeks of the Obama administration. These are enormous pieces of land. You put them together in Utah alone, and just these two amount to an area of land larger than 2 Delawares. I use Delaware here as a helpful reference because that, of course, is President Biden's home state. These monuments have been drawn up by bureaucrats who are thousands of miles away from Utah in Washington, and by people who have little understanding of the impact that these designations might have on the people who actually depend on these lands and live with them from day to day. In fact, these designations are often the product of years of lobbying by really wealthy celebrities and powerful activists whose daily lives are also not at all affected by the land in the same way that people in Utah depend on the land. The Antiquities Act allows them to completely bypass the will of the people who will be most directly affected by them and impose their own values on federal lands, to the great detriment of the lands themselves as well as to the people who live and work and recreate on them. No single person or president, regardless of political party, should be able to unilaterally lock up vast swaths of our nation's lands. Rather, it's the American people, and I think it should be, or at least include, specifically those closest to those lands, who should have the greatest say and control over how those lands are used. President Trump, thankfully, did take action to give them just that, reducing Grand Staircase by nearly 47% and Bears Ears by 85%. Now, President Biden has issued an executive order to conduct a review and determine whether restoration of the Bears Ears and Grand Staircase National Monuments would be appropriate. Such a restoration would contribute greatly to his promise to lock up 30% of all federal land by 2030, undoubtedly through actions under the Antiquities Act and through other means like mineral withdrawals. We really have to stand up to and advocate for the proper care and management of our lands, and to make the voices of Utahns and all Western Americans, for that matter, heard. As we move forward, I urge you to stand with me in this fight. Together as Utahns, as Westerners, as rural Americans, as people most directly affected by federal public land management policy, we need to be united. Thank you.